On today's episode of the Glue Guys, the Nets are fun. Can we declare the Nets are? I know they lost against the Lakers, but this is a fun team.
Second half of back-to-back. Who cares? Who cares?
And I saw Brian in person. We will recount.
Oh, the joy.
The joy. There's some things we can't discuss, like the Turkish bathhouse, but besides that.
Why not?
We'll
talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Coming right up. Welcome back to the Glue Guys. This is Mike here. Say hello, Brian.
Hello.
Check us out on Twitter at BKGlueGuys, netsdaily.com, The Athletic. Get yourself behind the paywall at theathletic.com/glueguys, a subsidiary of the New York Times Company.
Michael.
The Nets are back.
Yeah, buddy.
Dude,
we had a heck of a time. You came up to the Big Apple. We saw the Knicks get shellacked by the Nets. We haven't even talked about that on the podcast. What a game. What an absolute shellacking.
I was eating too many cannolis on the streets of New York to even
Mike
deign
did
to pod.
literally eat a cannoli, a walking cannoli. I thought it was a joke the whole time, and then he really just bought the cannoli and walked it.
It was the best kind of joke where it looked completely hilarious, but yes, I got to eat ricotta stuffed with sugar and a delicious shell. Brian?
Yeah.
If the Nets had beaten the Lakers last night, this pod would be a pure jubilance and extreme euphoria.
Yeah.
I would be Zendaya, and you would be the tall, scary guy who yells at people all the time on Euphoria, a Euphoria joke for the Gen Zers.
Yeah, I had no idea what that was.
We're trying to reach out to the Gen Zers, Brian.
Yep. Smart.
But they lost to the Lakers. I think that game can be easily explained as Claxton got hurt, Simmons didn't play, Curry didn't play.
Second half of back-to-back. Say no more. You lose me right there.
Yeah.
Second half. That's all I need to hear. Yeah.
This team under Jacques Vaughn. If Jacques Vaughn was leading the Republican Party, there would be a red wave right now. That's how efficient he is.
Yeah.
Not that that's. Anyways,
at galvanizing.
Not to get into that.
Yeah.
This team is fun, Brian. And what I want to diagnose is what's different. What's been happening? Why is this team rounding into form, getting better? There's a few key elements that are different. There are people that are not there, which I want to figure out how much we want to lay that down on, Kyrie not playing for this team, about why this team is playing better. But why do you think this team is actually playing better?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to still parrot that same take that I had last week. It's not that. Here's the thing. It's the downstream effect of having there just be one hero ball player in at a time. I think in this particular ascendancy, it's really down to the individual players. Watching Cheerboy Edmund Sumner rise to the occasion and become effectively a starting point guard. And even when it came to garbage time, when we played the Knicks, Mike, we noted that Edmund was not playing the garbage time. He is so begun to solidify. Now, that wasn't the case last night. I was watching a little garbage time against the Lakers, so he was playing then. So I didn't want to see that because I wanted this take to really be solidified. So this is like a half of a good take. But anyways, I do think that it's a crazy thing to say, but having those types of players, we haven't had actual fast athlete players who are kind of in that phase of their career, where they're just they're dying to prove themselves, absolutely dying to prove themselves, and we happen to have a couple of those in obviously different positions. So yeah, I mean, there's this kind of newfound egalitarian, everybody's got to touch the ball sort of situation on offense. Outside of just does Jacques Vaughn. Here's the other thing. We talked about this too. When Steve Nash is going to get fired, everyone's going to play a lot harder. That there's going to be this 10-game streak here.
That's important to note.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that is, Kevin Durant wanted him fired. He made that pretty public over the break. And so it is in everyone's best interest right now to play really hard and make that look like Steve Nash. And I don't disagree. Steve Nash was a big part of what was wrong with the Nets for a long time. So that's all good. There's no issues with that. I'm just saying, there's kind of a honeymoon period there where, because the defense or whatever is through the roof. And
are you still on your honeymoon period
with
your significant other?
Well, yeah, that never stopped. 6 years later, come on, riding high. It feels like we're back in Hawaii every day. No,
for my wife and I feel like we're still in the wedding planning period,
Nice.
which is just hell, and you're with your family, and you're trying to get money out of your family.
No, come on.
It's a real disaster.
You're a real mensch.
Help me. Oh, look at you using the linga.
I know. Well,
the Francalinga of my people.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a couple of different things going on, and I don't want to attribute it to just Jacques Vaughn or like maybe the window of absence of Kyrie Irving is interesting. It's doesn't have to be permanent. I don't think it's like this is the best version of the team's one where Kyrie is in an isolation tank. So
back to tank, just floating around.
Yeah,
getting those back to juices.
Right.
Yes.
Sorry, you seem like you wanted to say something.
No, I was going to do a quick tangent about how Sarah Kustak, I called her a mensch, and she DM'd us. I called her a mensch on the show, and she DM'd us, be like, just checking. Mensch a good thing or a bad thing? And I was like, Sarah, it's the best thing. Very nice.
That would be hilarious if you had a cryptic insult for just, I didn't think you'd look. Yeah,
she's a mensch. Kustak is a mensch. So to me, there's like a clear thing with under Jacques Vaughn. And I know people like oddly don't, there's a section of the fan base that wanted Ime Udoka, and I understand why you would want that. He was a great coach last year with the Boston Celtics, and people like point to Jacques Vaughn's record with the Orlando Magic. I think that was like the Obama administration Orlando Magic.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
So long ago. Don't we all believe in growth? This team is just playing way quicker, way faster. There was a clear edict. I mean, Katie has talked about it, like Jacques simplified things. And it's funny because the offense is running what sort of the core philosophy of Mike D'Antoni's system is, and I've heard Raja Bell, former Phoenix Sun, former teammate of Steve Nash's, talk about this, not about this team, but in general, of that if you are open, you take the shot, right? Make a play. And when it was Steve Nash run offense here, everyone was I don't have the stats in front of me, but I feel like the off-ball movement was maybe about the worst in the NBA. There was no off-ball movement. And there was even, when role players got the ball, they didn't really move. They just sort of like looked to see if Kevin Durant reposted or something else. What is happening is KD gets the ball to start the possession. He looks for a shot, maybe doesn't quite get it, passes to Sumner, and then there's a real distinct line from coaching to say, try to go to the bucket. Look what Royce O'Neal has done. Royce O'Neal's a guy who's like never been thought of as a distributor on any level. He's been a 3-and-D bro. He had like a 7-assist game.
He's playing real pick and roll with Nick Claxton all of a sudden. There's chemistry forming, Mike.
Nick Claxton has been giving the license to create a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? And that has a big effect because what was happening in the old offense was that all the role players were fit into such a tight corner that if they didn't hit the open shot that came to them, then they had no utility in an offense. It was like KD, Kyrie, and those guys cook. Everyone else has to hit that open shot if they get it. Now what's happening is those guys are being allowed to go drive to the bucket, to dribble around a little bit, to quick passes around the perimeter, try to get it inside quickly to Nick Claxton. I mean, Claxton's patience down in the post this year has been kind of incredible for a guy who, he was just never very deft in the post, and now he's doing the thing where he catches, gathers, waits for the defender to make sort of like the leaping move, and then he'll go and dunk the ball.
He can finally throw that little head fake that is absolutely necessary if you want to do his little hook.
How tiny that is, right?
Yeah.
That like tiny movement creates this massive effect and gives you an open bucket. Someone wrote, I think it was Alex Schiffer wrote this, that Claxton is emerging as one of the best young bigs in the NBA. And I don't have my young bigs list up. I like to usually carry that in my pocket, the young bigs list. But so I don't know if I can go there because I'm trying to, is Jared Allen still technically a young big? I think Jared Allen's not that much older than Nick Claxton, right? And Jared Allen's better. But after Jared Allen, there's the tier of Jokic and Embiid, which aren't young bigs anymore. Giannis, not a young big. Jared Allen certainly is one of the better young centers. But Claxton is becoming this force like we saw in that Dallas game. JaVale McGee, a guy who's won championships and moves around in the league, and every time a team gets him, they like him, but he never obviously stays for super long. Like he is a certain tier of big. And Claxton is just showing that he's the tier above. The journeyman big. Like the Knicks signed Isaiah Hartenstein. What did you think of young Isaiah's minutes when we saw him? Do you remember a single one of them?
A little forgettable, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Very forgettable. The Knicks signed Mitchell Robinson. Well, he hasn't been playing.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like the list of guys and like, there was a debate in the offseason. I don't know if we can. It's not murder she wrote. We can't. There's no finality to it yet.
Yeah.
The decision was sign Bruce Brown or sign Nick Claxton. Now I'm going to look up Bruce Brown's stats as we speak right now, and I have seen some of the Nuggets games, and he's had a random very good game. He's 10, 4, and 4. Love Bruce Brown. That is exactly
That's
who.
a perfect line
Bruce,
for him.
shooting 39% from three. Very happy to see that he's still making threes. Let me ask you this, Brian. I didn't prepare you for this.
Okay.
Would you rather have Bruce Brown on this team right now or Nick Claxton?
Well, it's an obvious choice for me for Nick Claxton just because of the depth at the positions. And if it wasn't for the fact that Royce is just such a revelation, it's really easing the burn of losing Bruce Brown. I mean, in a vacuum, hard to say. Really, much harder to say. But circumstantially, I think I got to go Nick Claxton.
Would you rather have Bruce Brown or Royce O'Neal? I think Royce O'Neal, right? Here's what I feel about Royce O'Neal. I think he's an actual better defender across the board. We're like, as much as I love Bruce Brown, I love his friskiness and his weight to him could get the rebounds. Mm-hmm. He wasn't like this awesome defender. Not that I think Royce O'Neal is, but Royce O'Neal's like that annoying. He's had a lot of moments this season so far where he's definitely pissed off the other team.
Yeah. And
this team in particular, the Nets, needed that dude.
Yeah.
Like they needed a little Pat Beverly instigator type, and Royce O'Neal has that element to him. Offensively, I really like him. I think Royce has been better than what Bruce was over his. I mean, it's tough. I love Bruce Brown. I don't want to disparage our boy. That's our guy.
It's an interesting parallel to draw there too, just because like Royce is. Yeah, he was really marketed as like a 3-and-D guy, and he's not. And I'm still kind of like catching up to, because Bruce Brown was like also kind of a weird playmaker in his own right. It was all everything was all they're two very strange. Well, Bruce is like truly one of the strangest players, and in an amazing way.
Steve Nash's best coaching job was figuring out how to use Bruce Brown.
Yeah,
there's no question.
It's a nice take.
I mean, the fact that he took this guy and made him like the best center in the NBA for a week, and made him the most devastating pick and roll threat with James Harden.
Yeah,
that was the best thing that Steve Nash did.
I have one last little take about the Jacques Vaughn thing. It just kind of occurred to me that it is actually an incredibly significant hire, actually, in the face of the Ime Udoka situation. Just because it's the first time where we didn't do the whole like choose the star talent with sort of flawed bedside manner, office politics, whatever it is. Probably not the best choice.
Literal bedside manner. I'm just gonna. I know. I'm sure it's serious, but like,
just flawed around the office in any of the ways. We've never turned down the talent. There's this whole thing in like, I don't know, this is going to sound lame, but like in like corporate culture, like, I don't know, I think there's like probably an Amazon, like, propaganda think piece about how they don't like a lot of office places don't get along well with just somebody who's like, I'm a star salesman, I'm a star designer, or whatever it is. And people will generally kind of like trend away from that these days in the post Steve Jobs sort of world. And there's a reason for it. It's because it sows discord. It's a little bit difficult to manage, and you have multiple of those personalities.
Check out
our Discord. Anyways, it's the first time we've chosen the homegrown, not super splashy, not fired out of a cannon kind of personality. And it's had good early returns. And I just, it just seemed like a moment where we should just take a moment to pause and observe that, like, hey, we chose the unsexy hire here, and it's gone pretty well so far.
And that was one of my arguments against the anti-Jacques Vaughn armies that were out there on Twitter, was that for a team that has been so dysfunctional for ever since basically Kevin Durant and Kyrie signed with the team on June 30th, 2019, a little stability that can go a long way. A little bit of, hey, not a new parent not coming into the equation.
Yeah.
In this moment, a problematic parent on some level. as much as like Ime had that relationship with a bunch of guys on the team, you know, there's also a lot of new people on the team that he has no relationship with, and who knows like how that all would have worked out. I understand. Like Jacques had done. What was interesting is that if this Kyrie stuff didn't happen, right, and the Nets could have, because the reporting is the Nets had been investigating the possibility of getting Ime Udoka before they even fired Steve Nash. It was like at least a week before, potentially, they were like, okay, I think we're going to fire Steve Nash. Let's look into Ime. If Kyrie didn't happen, I think Ime Udoka is definitely the coach of this team, because you're not having this one massive controversy where then you're adding in another controversy on top of it, another round of press conferences and press releases. And instead of the ADL coming after you, you have, you know, some women's group coming after you and saying, this is wrong, the Nets shouldn't be doing this, blah, 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 right? Then a round of columns come after that. If Kyrie doesn't promote his video that he loves so much, Ime Udoka is hired. And not even that. If Kyrie even had tweeted that video like he did, but apologized right away, I think this controversy dies down. I mean, we talked about not talking about this, and I'm just going to mention it real quick. Is that
we specifically did talk about it, but let's get into it
just a little bit. Yeah. Like people are like very like LeBron has come out and said, and Jaylen Brown and said, you know, what Kyrie's being asked to do is too much. The 6-step program, it's a little silly. I'll say it's a little silly. The reason why he's doing that program though is not because he tweeted out the video. He's doing the program, the Big Daddy Josai program, is because he refused to apologize on any level until basically his career was threatened, right? Like the video came out, there was a hubbub. He was very dismissive of arguments. Adam Silver literally puts out a statement to say, you know, hey, Kyrie, you need to actually apologize. And then he still, when he meets with the press, doesn't apologize. So that's why he's doing this 6-step program, which again, I do want to get into it at the end of the show. Well, I don't know if we should do this now, but whether you think it's enough. But here's the thing. If all this 6-step program, if Kyrie had apologized initially, Ime's the coach, but because there was this rolling controversy, it gave Jacques Vaughn the time to coach this team. And the team immediately flipped a switch when he became the head coach. I'm not counting the Bulls game because Kyrie was still co-opting the team at that point.
Yeah.
So like all of this is like been a ripple effect off of, you know, the disaster of the season so far. But hey, it's turning around.
I'm happy to answer that now. The whole like 6-step thing for me is manufactured to like have a PR moment of like we did the like we you remember how everyone talks about like this is an educational moment, like we did it, guys, we had the educational moment. And that's what it's sort of designed to do. And you know, people have issues with that, of like that's sort of condescending in a few ways. You know, whatever, I can go back and forth on that, and I see those arguments. But really from the Nets perspective is they need to have that PR moment of we had to come together. There was, people get crazy on the internet and you fall into the wrong, you know, search engines. You type Yahweh into Amazon and you never know what comes out. So it was an educational moment. Is it enough? I think it's the right amount, because like really we're just trying to hit that little threshold where we can say that. You know, is that the best like overall course of action? You know, I don't know, but that seems to be the plan for now, and it seems achievable so long as Kyrie is willing to. And it's also another thing. It's, you know, this goes back into like a lot of those other arguments about it being condescending. It's like a little bit of a test to see if Kyrie is willing to, you know, kind of curb some ego and do the like, you know, kind of get tasked with some homework, and you know, you can't come back until you do it. Because that's the exact kind of thing that like chides him in particular. And I think there is like a little bit of desire to frankly, to chide him. Like we, you know, there is. No, like,
I don't know if any Nets podcaster has been as out front about the Kyrie anti-Semitism film stuff than I, but I agree with you that I think there's a level of like the Nets put out, they basically leaked it to everyone they could, about the 6-step program, Big Daddy Josiah's 6-step program to success. He's going to write a book called Big Daddy Joe's 6-step program to success, and it's going to involve meeting rabbis. That's always what you should do. And I think a lot of it was like, they are so sick of Kyrie that they were going to make it as hard as possible for him to return. And so that's why I understand from the Players Association perspective of like, we can't, it is somewhat extreme. The thing is, Kyrie is such an extreme dude that I have trouble forgiving him or, viewing him as a sympathetic figure, because he did put out the video and he refused to apologize. And he was like pretty strongly, digging in within the whole week until his career was essentially threatened. But I will say this. The Nets have put themselves in a corner because Kyrie has met with Adam Silver, and Adam Silver leaked it that or he said himself in a statement that he does not view that Kyrie has any real anti-Semitic views, that he doesn't hate people. And then Josiah said the exact same thing. So now that you have the owner of the team and the commissioner of the league saying that, like, does Kyrie really need to get on some Zooms? I mean, ultimately, that's what we're asking him to do. We're saying this is so burdensome. He's just got to get on some Zooms and meet with a rabbi. Like, I do that. I do that often.
Yeah.
Before
any big life decision.
Yeah. And then I meet with a rabbi sometimes.
Smart.
And rabbis are famously, they just bad jokes, but they're nice guys.
Yeah.
Usually, most of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
right rabbi.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is it's part of a larger. When people talk about this with the Kyrie Irving situation, it is part of a larger narrative that goes from flat Earth to anti-vax to this, and in this case there is a bit of a jumping of the shark where it's a little bit spicier than flat Earth, but it's born of the same place. So if those Zooms are like how to Google better or whatever, then
the Zooms are being.
Let me on.
The Zooms are being designed by the Nets. I don't know if people remember that. So I want people to realize how ill-equipped the Nets are to design those Zoom sessions. Or I don't know if they're Zooms. I'm just being flippant because it's all kind of silly. The Nets aren't like equipped to make anti-Semitism training or whatever, an anti-sensitivity or pro-sensitivity training.
we want the pro-sensitivity version. Is that?
Not the there's like one door is the anti-sensitivity and one's the pro-sensitivity. Yeah. Anyways, I don't really want to talk about it, but like, I do think, like, if the owner of the team and the commissioner of the NBA are both like, hey, we met with Kyrie, we talked with him, he seems fine. Then he should be pretty close to being allowed to play basketball again. Mm-hmm. Unless this 6-step program, Big Daddy Joe's 6-step program, was done in order to just be like, Kyrie's never going to do this and we don't want to see him again, which is very possible. I will give the Kyrie supporters that. It is possible that the 6-step program is being done to push him away. And
to complicate things further, Mike, everyone's playing a lot better at the moment. It makes it even more complicated.
Let's do this. We'll take a break. Coming out of break, I think, Brian, we should mention whether we believe, yes or no, the team is better without Kyrie Irving.
Oh, boy.
And we're back, Brian.
Yeah.
The conversation that I don't know if we're prepared to have.
No, I don't think so.
Are the Brooklyn Nets better without Kyrie Irving? Do you want me to start, or do you want to dive deeply into the breach, my friend?
No, I mean, I'm happy to sort of set the premise. There was a tweet, and I don't have it in front of me because this is I'm just trying to catch up to the new subject about what the record is in the last 2 years with Kyrie and without, and without having the numbers in front of me. I think it was 17 and 25 over the last 2 years, plus playoffs and play-in with Kyrie, and more. And over 500 without him. We'll just call it that. So there is, at least literally on paper, some evidence to suggest that having Kyrie does not necessarily correlate directly to stacking the dubs, which is the KPI that we all are ultimately here for, Mike. And that's key performance indicator for those of you who don't. It is a fraught conversation at this particular moment. The anti-Kyrie, pro-Kyrie the battle lines are drawn, Mike, and we obviously are in the middle of it, and people who are on either side of it have issues with our, just because we waffle and we go back and forth. We're incredibly nuanced and spineless. That's in equal doses, and so we go back and forth, or at least I do. Mike, you're pretty dead set.
Nuanced and spineless.
Yeah. And
listen to the glue guys.
And so I go back and forth on this myself. I don't know if you do, but those are the battle lines as they are currently constituted. That's the subject for debate. Are we ready to dig into this? Do we want to air it out?
Yeah, I mean, I do hold the belief that if you are relying on Kyrie Irving, you will fail, like on a basic level. Whether it's funny because Bill Simmons was podcasting before Kyrie sent the tweet. Bill Simmons, like 2 days before, was saying stuff like, Kyrie's going to do something that's going to blow up the team, right? And then Kyrie sends out the tweet, and then the world learns about it through Rolling Stone magazine, and then, all goes to hell. I firmly believe that Kyrie, as a whole, the whole Kyrie experience makes it extremely tough to create a consistent winner at this point in his career. Mm-hmm. I think LeBron, one of his greatest achievements may be the fact that he was able to, whatever it was that he was doing, maybe it was because of Kyrie's age and he was just less independent and less sort of, we all, when we're 23, are different when we are when we're 30, that LeBron was able to contain whatever Kyrie was doing to win a championship and then to go to multiple championships. Kyrie's unreliability, both on and off the court, make it so it's tough to imagine the Nets can cohesively build a team and then go on to be very good in the playoffs or compete for a championship or blah, blah, whatever the goal is going to be. And I've talked about this before, and I'm going to do it at some point on a really high level. What trades you would do for Kyrie. Because frankly, Kyrie's pretty toxic across the NBA at this point. The thing that he is he's an expiring contract with a big number. So a team could want him, not for him, but for his contract to clear their books for next offseason. Mm-hmm. The teams I would be looking at are the Knicks, because their season, they may be firing Tom Thibodeau pretty soon. Mm-hmm. Things are getting ugly in Knicks land. Yeah. And that's never been a stable organization. Newsflash. The Utah Jazz, who are one of the best teams in the NBA so far this season, but their stated goal is to tank. That's a team I would look for. I've said OKC, but OKC's books really are pretty clean, and there's nothing you can do. You kind of look across the board. Maybe if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves and you're like, we kind of suck, do we flip D'Angelo Russell? Anyways, there are places you can put Kyrie that may make sense from a contract perspective to bring back longer-term bad contracts. Frankly, Dallas, they have a couple of long-term contracts on guys who aren't doing anything for them. That's a team you can look to and say, well, maybe, Kyrie in Dallas kind of fits, Yeah.
I
don't know.
Culturally.
Yeah. Maybe he'll be very embraced, anti-vax, all the stuff that he likes to pretend out there. So I firmly believe the way this team is playing now, they are playing better. The problem is, and this is the negative to my own argument, they cannot win a championship without either Kyrie or something in replace of Kyrie, meaning they can't just tell Kyrie to go away. Yeah. So one, you have to at least give it a shot to have him come back and see if he can kind of play more within this system, which is like, hey, we're going to move the ball. Like, the stars are going to get their shots up. KD's kind of a secret MVP candidate, just that the team is so, controversial that no one really wants to talk about it, but he's electric this year. And so efficient. Yeah. And so can you bring Kyrie into the system? Can you give that a shot? I have my doubts. I have my doubts that it just won't work from the time he comes back till the end of the season. There will be more discontent. There will be ways that he kind of damages the basketball. But also, I'm not an idiot. This team isn't going to win a championship with Edmund Sumner. Yeah. Being Magic Johnson for the team.
It is really an interesting player to think about like this too, because there's nothing like he is a 50-40-90 guy. He is like spectacular to watch. Like just the optics of him playing basketball are unbelievable.
So fun.
And yet it's like well, I'm trying to like think about like why is it that it like if he comes back and we go back into like dueling banjos stuff again, like how much more evidence will we need before we're like it's almost like we're there's like some kind of like logical fallacy going on. Like if you play well enough and like like you visually stimulating enough, you take up that amount of like bandwidth and people's because it's like you're watching 10 guys at a time, and if somebody's that spectacular, you just can't help but like put all of your attention onto them, or at least like 2 of 10. And that I do find that that's what happens when Kyrie plays. Like I'm just like kind of zeroing. It's like wow, it's just so much fun to watch. And I think there is something to it where it's like it's possible that it's one of those like Moneyball situations where it's like how is it that could be diminishing returns? Like I just don't like fully understand like how somebody who's both efficient like that and high volume and then also spectacular, makes really difficult shots, how is it still not resulting in like dominance? And it hasn't been since the entire time he's been here. It just hasn't resulted in that the dominance that we like one would expect. And I hate it. Like now we get to have to dig down into the murkiness of like, well, yeah, he's not a leader, and there's like we get into this like subjective stuff where it's very difficult.
Well, I think there's a subtlety that people need to think about when they watch these games. So like a great example is Luka. When Luka's cooking, he draws double teams, he creates open shots for teammates. Kyrie, because he's so singularly great at like ball handling, and all of his shots are extremely tough. It's not like teams send doubles to Kyrie because he doesn't like blow by anyone. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like it almost doesn't help to send a double to Kyrie because what he is doing is so quick and limited in the space that he's operating in that he's going to be able to. He basically kind of gets his shot in a very quick moment. Where Luka is this like long James Harden, Giannis, they are like top of the key, eyeing the basket, dribbling, driving to the hoop, consuming the defense. Even Steph Curry, where it's like Curry is obviously amazing, and everyone talks about his gravity because he pulls people towards him, the 3-point line. Kyrie at one point was as good of a shooter as Curry. There was like a moment when it was like, who's the better shooter from as a point guard, whatever they would consider them. And actually, if you look at Kyrie's numbers, his 3-point shooting is bad this year. But that's just also because he's played like 3 games or whatever. It's hard to describe. Kyrie's greatness kind of involves him being interior and focusing on his play, and then that kind of affects a general offense. Like he's not a guy who's going to not only raise his own level of offense, he's not pulling other people up with him. He's just so singularly great. Kevin Durant's kind of like that too. They're both players that are singularly amazing and electric. KD draws double teams. He draws a massive amount of double teams. So he does it way more than Kyrie. Kyrie's just like so freaking unique. He's incredible. And I don't really even want to, the whole point of this conversation is not to even to disparage.
We're not trying to dog him,
right?
I'm trying to understand it, because it's like it should be working. I watched this this sort of like psychological thriller recently about a true story about 2 twins who were bad influences on each other, and they only talked to each other and nobody else, and they pretended not to speak for like the first 20 years of their life, basically. Like they can like nobody could get through to them.
Is that a true story?
Yeah, it's a true story. And so they had to like split them up. And I find that like Kevin Durant is maybe like there could be a little bit of a bad influence. I hate to do this, but like he has been much more like integrated into the offense, and like he's stacking trip dubs everywhere, or like close to it. And most nights that he's playing nowadays, his assist numbers have gone up since Kyrie's been back. It just feels different. I'm just trying to. I don't have hot takes. I'm just trying to understand it, Mike. I'm trying to understand. Help me to understand.
And the other thing I'll add, and so watching this team, there was like a moment when it was on the floor, like closing crunch time. It was Claxton, KD, and then all shooters. It was like Royce, Seth Curry, and Joe Harris. And of course, Kyrie's a shooter. And like, how great would he be if he was actually playing off ball and he was receiving a pass from the 3-point line and either putting up that shot or like cooking guys who are trying to, rotate towards him. That's not who he is. But like that lineup, the KD as the ball handler with Nick Claxton down there, pick and roll, offensive rebounding, and then just shooters is like so exciting. Who also is not in that lineup is Ben Simmons, which I don't know if, I mean, let me ask you this. We saw him in person.
Yeah.
What did you think of Ben Simmons in that Knicks game? Because I will say Brian got very good seats.
Oh,
Brian got we were 6 rows behind the Nets bench. We were really. I mean, there's a bunch of things we could pick up. Should we talk about the Sean Marks brain trust a little bit? I think we should.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I think we should. But what did you think about Ben Simmons when you saw him in person that up close?
I don't even here's the real issue is that I've stopped really like keying into him. Like he is doing the thing that we kind of like were worried about, which is a little bit like drifting into the background, which isn't the worst thing at this moment, but like it is sort of like this is I have my ramp in the background on the YouTube. We're back to ramping him. I feel like this could be a ramp situation, and this could be a very long ramp. But I don't know. I guess I'm in the process of readjusting my expectations because I do not know what the zenith of this experience is going to be at this point, and there's not a whole lot there to suggest right now that it's going to get like a lot better very soon. It doesn't. So my expectations have been lowered. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. He's very uncomfortable out there, and that's partly. I mean, he coming back from back surgery and now having a knee issue. Like it's not unusual, and he hasn't played in a long time, but he's very uncomfortable. Sean Marks. So where Brian and I were sitting was again behind the bench, and very close to so it's like by the tunnel where the Nets, like right by the Nets bench, and that's where Sean Marks and the front office all sit. They sit in these seats like right there. Were we watching a Credit Suisse happy hour? What were we watching there, Bri? The vibe. What would you say the vibe of the front office staff of the Brooklyn Nets was?
I don't know. It was very.
How much Patagonia half zips? Quarter zips do you think they own?
Well, there was a lot of smart jackets. I don't know. It was very buttoned up crew. I don't know. What do you?
I'm just not that impressed.
I'm
not that impressed by the crew.
Wow.
They were all.
You think you could do better? Is this your job application?
Yeah, I have for years.
Yeah.
I've listed draft prospects and stuff. I don't know. It was just the vibe of it was not what I wanted. Didn't feel like
we were joking that there was the Peter Brand, speaking of Moneyball, in like that was just that had Sean Marks' ear the whole time. He's like, that's who found Edmund Sumner and Yuta Watanabe was their Peter Brand.
And I did want to do this, but we do have one email question, and we'll get to that right now at the end of the show. But I do think Sean Marks deserves credit because, we believe Markieff Morris was a Kevin Durant signing because he seemed to push for it. The guys when Sean Marks had the end of the year press conference and he talked about wanting to kind of get back to the ethic of the Spencer Dinwiddie, Joe Harris teams back in the past, the signings that represent that are Yuta and Sumner, and they've both been awesome. Awesome in their role. He deserves credit for grabbing those guys. I mean, like Edmund Sumner is like 1,000 times better than, I love Chris Chiozza, but he's just a way more interesting player than Chris Chiozza is at this point. And it has an actual potential future because he's much longer than Chiozza. Yuta is a valuable bench guy where it seems like you could probably not play Yuta for 3 weeks and then put him in and he would just cause havoc. Mm-hmm. And I love that. So he deserves credit. We have one question here, Brian.
Okay.
This is a basketball question. This is from Tom John.
Okay.
It says, hey there, Glue Guys. Wondering if you expected such a night and day difference, at least defensively, with the switch from Nash to Jacques Vaughn. What factors do you think are the most responsible for this improvement on defense? What is JC's defensive scheming, quality opponents, current players, indefinite suspension, or have some players just bought into JC's coaching? I think it all, one, it links back into, yes, Kyrie not being on the floor. It helps. It also, like, the bench has gotten deeper. Not that Seth Curry's a good defender, but him coming back allows you to spread out more minutes among some other guys. Joe Harris getting more back into the swing of things allows you to spread out minutes. I think there's like a real determination. You'll see it from Sumner. You'll see it from Royce O'Neal. Those guys like playing more and having more agency on offense has bled into defense where there's like a real effort. And Nick Claxton has become like, he was always a bad rebounder for a guy his size. He's doing the thing where like he even just tips out the ball and gets it to the nets, which is like that's the next level of rebounding that you're trying to attain to, which is like affecting the rebound while not getting it. And he's doing that. And as you love to state, rebounding, is a form of defense. Getting a rebound and ending a possession by rebounding is. I actually never think you said those exact words.
Feels very
right in your mouth.
Feels very Red Auerbach of me. I love it.
This team is playing significantly better on defense. It's partly because Kyrie's out, and I think it's because it talks about simplification. Like this team is just there. Here's a key moment. Okay, I forget what game. It was the Mavericks game when Luka was cooking the Nets, and KD switched on to Luka and was guarding Luka, which one is so exciting, right? That Kevin Durant's like, fuck it, I'm willing to get embarrassed, but I'm going to guard this supernova talent who outweighs me by 70 pounds or however much Luka outweighs him. But KD was kind of messing up. KD was doing a thing where he was so determined to stop Luka was that when he should be switching off Luka when there was a screen coming, he stuck with Luka through the screen, but so did the other Nets defender who was guarding the screen man. And then Luka would have a wide open player charging to the middle of the hoop. That guy would catch the ball, either pass it out to a shooter or dunk it, right? KD was bucking the scheme to try to be mano-a-mano defense. Nets called a timeout. Jacques Vaughn did. Coming out of the timeout, KD stopped doing that. KD allowed the switches to happen, and the Nets played better defense on Luka. They stuck to the scheme. That's a coaching change. Maybe KD probably recognized it himself. He's one of the smartest players of all time. This team there's something magical happening here, Brian.
Okay. Well, we'll be very interested to see what happens now that we have a little bit of a data set, tiny data set, and then Kyrie's going to come back at some point, and we'll be able to contrast, compare, and this conversation, I'm sure, will go on throughout the entire season, one way or another, Mike. And we'll be here to track it all.
All right, let's go to break. Coming back.
No. At BK Glue Guys on Twitter. Twitter is a cesspool. Real conversation happens on Discord, discord.gg/Glue Guys.
I mean, really, people take hold of that, what Brian just said. I mean, Discord is where it's just the place to be. It's supposed to be.
And then there's also YouTube. Smash the follow, hammerjack the like. And Mike, anywhere else? Anything else you want to plug? You got a thing.
I've got a couple of books coming out. Do you know that Michael Lewis has been embedded with the guy from FTX?
Oh, no. I didn't know that.
He's been embedded with him for 6 months.
Wow.
Can you imagine? I mean, Michael Lewis, Jesus, man.
Yeah.
How much more money do you need?
Yeah, it really gets in
He's
there.
going to crush it. Like how quickly? Yeah. So, anyways,
look for that.
I've lost a lot of money in FTX.
Whoops. Sorry. You'll get it back. Anyways, thanks for having me, Mike.
Bye.